Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome everybody to this House of Nerds show, man. It feels good. It feels extra nice today. Guys, how long has it been since the three of us, all three, have been together on the show? It's been a while.
We've looked back into it. It's been quite a few weeks, maybe a month, maybe a little longer than that since we've all three been together.
Yeah, it's been a while.
So I'm hyped, man. I'm feeling good. It's good to be on here with Lauren and Steve. You guys, man, this is amazing. It's been too long. I'm glad we got the whole crew together, and hopefully we can have a few solid weeks where we're rolling, man.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Lauren,
who knows?
no more days off, man. That's it. You've reached your limit for the year of 2021, and you too, Steve. All right, buddy. But listen, man, it's Sunday. It's Sunday morning. Thank you, everybody, for waking up with us. Thank you, everybody in the live chats who's here already, man. A special shout out to my boy Oscar, who's here every week, like at 10:15, 10:20. He's the
Every
first
time.
one.
Yep.
Oscar, you're here before I'm here. So we appreciate you, everybody who comes out every week, man. You guys are all dope, amazing. We got a good show for you this week. What do we have? Our weekend review. After weekend review, we've got actually some a little different. We've got a trade paperback review of Cannabis, which is dropping. You guys is dropping this week.
Well, it's available right now if they want to get digitally on Scout Comics website.
Okay. And how
But
about
it goes?
the
I think it goes
physical
into
review?
bookstores next week.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. So we got a review of that coming up, and then our discussion for today: comic book adaptations. Man, you guys know there's a lot of good ones out there, and some not so good ones out there. So
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear what everybody's thinking. What are some of your favorites, not so favorites? Steve, Lauren, don't let us down, man. Okay? I wanna bring the takes, man. Bring the takes, okay?
Spicy takes on comic adaptations.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's been a lot. I mean, let's be honest. Comic adaptations, so many of them have been just amazing, just fantastic.
Absolutely. And we're gonna get into that, bud. And then afterwards, Steve's gonna talk about Teal Comic Book Club, man. He's doing big things over there. And then my favorite, Copper Drop. We got a little something for you later on in the show. Stay tuned. We're talking Mullet Cop, and we'll explain to you why we're talking Mullet Cop this week. But yeah, let's get into it, man. And happy post Batman Day, everybody. It's Batman Day +1. Steve.
I mean,
why is okay? Hold on. First, why is that the Batman Day? Is that when Batman #1 came out first? Is that when Detective Comics #1 came out? Like, who decided that day was Batman Day?
I couldn't tell you. Lauren, you have any thoughts?
every day in DC Comics office is Batman Day, and they just decided, public, it's also now Batman Day for you.
There's got to be a reason. There's got to be some kind of a logic.
I'm hoping it's like Detective Comics #1 came out on what's it, September 18th, however many years ago.
Hey, if anybody in the live chats knows, I know you guys, you nerds, man. You guys are on top of your stuff, man. You guys.
I got it. I just googled it.
Oh,
It is Batman Day is held on the third Saturday of September to mark the creation of the Dark Knight by Bob Kane and Bill Finger in 1939.
But is it the day that the book came out, or the day that they ended up going, hey, that's Batman? Like,
I'm not that specific to read more.
But I gotta say, it feels like there's like 3 or 4 Batman days throughout the year. So I don't know. DC, Batman's their moneymaker. So
you may have been confused. You may have been confused because if you're thinking Batman Day was 2 months ago, that was Free Comic Book Day. There just happens to be so much Batman that most of Free Comic Book Day was Batman.
Yeah, lots of Batman. And we're gonna get into some Batman later on. Steve.
Yeah.
You weren't here last week, so you've got probably a couple weeks worth of comic books to talk to us about this.
Yeah, let's just say I spent yesterday afternoon about 4 hours of it catching up on last week's stuff as well as this week's. So my week in review is going to be a bit different. I don't want to include the books that came out last week. Usually I kind of do that, but I don't want to just for the fact that you guys have already talked about it last week. We all know that these books are good. Nice House on the Lake. Pick it up. It's amazing.
Yeah.
The Me You Love in the Dark. We all know it's great. Issue 2 is no different. Pick that up. I also read Black Beacon #2. It was good. I like it. If you can get your hands on it, I recommend it. And then X-Force came out last week too. Beast is a bit of an asshole, but that's just how he is now. I will say honorable mention, and I didn't think I'd say this on this show, The Amazing Spider-Man #73. This is one issue away from 74, which is Nick Spencer's finale.
Oh.
And in it, they have retconned arguably the worst Spider-Man arc of all time. I would say Sins Past is worse than One More Day, just because it ruined multiple characters within that story arc. And finally, 73 comes in and says, no, Norman Osborn and Gwen Stacy did not have sex. They did not have children together. All of that is bullshit. It didn't happen like that. It was all a fabrication. 73 retcons the worst Spider-Man arc of all time. So for that, I got to give it to Nick Spencer. 73 was amazing.
About that.
I mean, just hearing those words, I was like, why did that ever get written in the first place?
Spider-Man comics are a little fucked up, Lauren.
Yeah.
But luckily, again, honorable mention, Sins Past has been retconned. Thank you, Nick Spencer, for getting rid of that. Because holy fuck. I also read We Don't Kill Spiders, because that was recommended by Sergio. That was a pretty good book too. And Maze book by Lemire. That was awesome. Amazing. So many good books came out last year. It was so good. Yeah. You guys nailed it on the episode talking about it. I absolutely loved it. Lemire just hits everything so well. So as for this week's in review, because you already talked about a bunch of those great books last week, I don't want to reiterate on that. Let's talk about some new, fresh stuff. My number 3, The Trial of Magneto #2. I've talked a bit before about my thoughts on that. Lauren, are you following this at all?
Yep, I have it. I have that issue.
What are your thoughts on number 2?
The ending of it kind of defeats the whole purpose. Like, the ending of it made me just go, oh, this is an obvious cheap event. That page alone, though, was beautiful, like at the beginning. Yeah, the artwork in this... I don't know how you write that, and I know the text is blurred out there, but it's also, it was released as an official page before the issue came out, so I'm going to tell you what it says. He's all like, I know you are here, Charles, and he's all like, do you like what you see? And I'm like, how can you write that, Marvel, and expect me not to think that's the case? So there's a lot happening, but yeah, I think this is just a cheap event Marvel's doing, and that's kind of how it felt to me.
Yeah, we talked about a bit in our State of X video where it feels like the X-Men stuff doesn't have that much relevance as it's going on and on without Hickman, and this event kind of feels that way. I was really hyped for it. Issue 1, I didn't really like the turn that they made for Magneto, because I feel like he's been having a great run since House of X and Powers of 10. And I don't like, out of nowhere, he just had this character turn, and now he's acting so terribly compared to how he was before. And this issue, it feels much in the same way where comic event for comic event, let's get them together and fight for some reason, even though it doesn't make sense. It reminded me a lot of Fantastic Four plus X-Men, that four-issue miniseries that Zdarsky did around the time when Powers of 10 and House of X came out. It's giving me a lot of those feelings where it's like, ultimately it didn't matter. It just ended up with a bunch of heroes fighting each other again. And I'm reading this because I want a certain outcome for Wanda, and I don't know if I'm going to get it. And I don't know if this is going to matter at all. But I did really enjoy the artwork.
Correct.
And the coloring in this book is amazing. So for that reason, it's my number 3.
So should I be reading Trial of Magneto for the Charles and Magneto kind of vibes that we're getting there, or
I'd say yes, but unfortunately, it's just not enough to get you through the whole book if that's the only reason you read it. So,
if you want some good-looking art, pick up this book. It's honestly those just few pages.
If you want thirst over Eric, pick it up. I mean, he's a beautiful man. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my number 3. My number 2 is another X title, Marauders. It always does everything so well, and this issue is very much so kicking off a new arc, more so space related. If you like old Star Wars, we're talking like A New Hope, and if you like the Mos Eisley Cantana scene, where it's just a bunch of outlaw badasses in a space bar, this issue is pretty much that. It's outlaws being badasses in a space bar.
This issue was incredibly enjoyable for me. Not that like it blew my mind, but because it read to me so much like all the good feelings from Star Wars A New Hope, like the original film. It had all those vibes, but put it in a mutant context. Like, and there's moments here that directly reference Star Wars A New Hope. Like, you know it the second you see it and read it. But yeah, I loved it. And that cover's gorgeous. The colors on it are phenomenal. I wasn't the biggest fan of the interiors here. Like when you see their faces here, not a fan of that.
Yeah, Phil Noto's artwork, I think it works really well on singular books. I think it works well on Cable and some of the other stuff. I don't know if it works so well on Marauders. Just because Marauders, I feel, is supposed to be like very colorful, very action oriented, very fluid in terms of motion. And Noto's work it feels like a lot of it's stills. Like it's just like cut motion that you can just see, which I think works well in not as many action titles. Like Noto's work is amazing in and of itself. I don't think it works so well in something like Marauders. But I love this book because of another thing that it did for Kate Pryde. She's just as much of a badass as she has been since this series started in issue 1. Here she is stealing some blasters because the dude's being a bit of a prick to her. And here she is just beating the hell out of this dude. And
he was 100% the Han Solo character here.
Absolutely.
And it was very fun.
As soon as I was reading that, I'm like, this is Star Wars. That's the Mos Eisley Cantana scene. She is Han, and she's beating the ever-loving shit out of this guy. And yeah, if you just want a book in a space bar, pick up Marauders number 24 because it's amazing for that.
And I saw my boy Bishop in there.
Bishop is part of the Marauders. Yeah,
he's Marauders. Yes, sir.
One little known fact, one of my favorite X-Men characters. So anytime I see Bishop,
you got to catch up with the Krakoan era, Sergio. I'm telling you,
there's a lot going on.
You got one trade to read, just House of X Powers at 10, and then you're set. That's all you got to read.
Yep,
perhaps.
And so that's my number 2, just because Kate Pryde beating the hell out of someone. Why is that not your number 2? My top book for the week, though, I think people can see it coming, is Porcelain by Maria Lovett. I've said before how much I really enjoy when it's just one creator who does the writing, the artwork, pretty much everything. And you could feel the love and the amount that is put into this book. It is not, and I think one of the reasons it's my top book is because it is not like anything else I've read this week. It reminds me in a way of The Me You Love in the Dark, but kind of an opposite, because they're both dealing with like horror kind of vibes, but The Me You Love in the Dark is a pretty book. Like the artwork in it is amazing. The coloring in it is amazing. All of it makes it look beautiful. In terms of Porcelain, I don't think Porcelain's artwork is for everyone, but I love it because of how stylistic it is. When you read this book, you are not reading anything that looks like this book out of the rest of your pile.
Yeah.
The colors are like this. It feels so European in a good way. This book has multiple different colors in it. As you see before, there was a bunch of blues. Now it's the teals. And there's also neon purples. It goes through all these different color gamuts in just this one book because of how weird this setting is. And the art isn't for everyone, but I love the fact that it's just one person doing everything, and it is very fucking weird. If you're into like horror or thriller type books, this is a weird, off-putting book. Like it makes me feel weird because I don't know what's going to happen in it, and it gives me like this claustrophobic feeling. Like there's so much in this page alone. There's so much for you to look at that it makes me feel kind of uneasy because it's just an overload of things.
Yeah, I dig that. I dig the art. So you're saying it's got like a horror vibe to it?
Yeah. It's not a nice place. This dollhouse, people are getting killed in it. it's just people trying to survive. It is a horror type book.
Okay, I might have to check that out.
I don't know if you'd like it entirely because, like I said, the art isn't for everyone. But I'm loving the tone that is going on in this book. It makes me feel so uneasy, and it's not like anything else I've read. Which, man, I got to give it to it for that. So Porcelain. I also got the variant. It has some beautiful looking variants too.
Oh, now that's saying right there. I know you're digging it because you don't really pick up like duplicate or variants and stuff.
Yeah,
I don't see that too often. So
usually if I like how the variant looks more than the cover A, I'll pick up a variant, and it's the same price, so why not? But yeah, Porcelain #1, my top book of the week. Check it out. Check it out if you want something horror, if you want something to make you feel uneasy. It's not for everyone. I'm not recommending it for everyone, but if you like horror stuff and you like what you see, pick it up.
Hey man, it made your #1 for a reason, right? So
yeah,
it's good. It's good. Nice haul, Steve. I don't think you got enough X-Men there though, bud.
I could add a little
You're
more.
Right.
You know, I'm not reading Sword. I'm not reading Cable.
I don't read
Wolverine.
That. Don't read that.
I'm not reading Excalibur.
Don't read it.
Reading. What else am I not reading?
Are you reading Hellions? If you're not reading it, I'm coming for your house.
I'm not reading Hellions.
And you pointed out that it's got a European vibe to it.
It does, yeah.
And Maria Lovett is European, so there you go.
That makes sense. My Hungarian vibes are just working so well with this book.
Lauren, what's going on? What did you pick up this week? What are you reading? What are you digging? What are you enjoying?
Yeah, so I had a smaller haul this week. The top 3 I picked out. So I did my second pick. I'll get to that, but I didn't pick that one up physically because it was a catch-up read I did. And when I get to it, I'll talk about why I had to catch up on it. But my number 3 pick of the week kind of surprised me. I would have thought it would have been like an indie book or something, but it wasn't. It was Marvel's King the Conqueror, which is my number 3 here. I've been kind of feeling weird about this line when it first started because it's pretty clear they're starting a King the Conqueror line to go with the MCU stuff and how they're bringing him in. Yeah. But as somebody who does not know King the Conqueror that well yet, this is actually really freaking cool. I mean, the art alone looks really cool, and the fact that he's such a complicated character because of all the time travel and the different versions of Kang himself and before he becomes Kang and stuff. It's incredibly fascinating to me as somebody who likes like time travel and history and all that put together. Lots of really intense themes in there, lots of characters that you may have not expected to be in there, but make perfect sense to be there. So if you're a fan of X-Men and there's certain characters that pop up in there, 1 or 2, and Dr. Doom's on the cover for the next issue, and there's reasons for that. It's really cool, man. So if you haven't picked it up, I definitely say give it a shot. Really cool.
And Lauren and Steve, you guys are the in-house X experts. We got a question here from the live chats. The one and only Kalis.
Yeah.
Can I just read Marauders? It seems like a good book, but I don't want to be confused.
Absolutely, you can. I think as long as you start by first reading House of X, Powers of 10, it comes in a compilation of 12 issues. Once you read that, I think you're set for reading anything else X-Men in the current era.
Yeah,
just have that just in mind, just so you know what's going on. But
yeah, I'll mimic that because I was reading Marauders actually before I read House of X, Powers of 10. Mm-hmm. But that was the only X title I was currently reading. And then I got bullied. I got pushed to read House of X, Powers of 10. I was like, fine, I'll read it. And it blew my mind, and even as an old X-Men fan. So yeah, if you read that trade, you can read whatever X-Men line you want. You can read the one you like and not read any others. You can read 3 of them. It does not matter. You pick what you like. Don't get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Awesome. There you go. The X experts, Steve and Lauren. Thank you guys.
But back to Lauren with what you read.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there anything else in terms of Kang the Conqueror that you'd like to mention?
It's just a really interesting read in terms of I think it does a lot of things that other books can't do because the character just does not offer the ability to do so. Whereas King the Conqueror, again, he's just such a complex character and there's so many different origins and so many different things that go together It's just really cool. I mean, nobody's talking about this book, which kind of bothers me because I'd say it's one of the better Marvel books, and it's going to be a limited series, I'm pretty sure, but it's really cool.
One of the better Marvel books. Wow. Okay, cool.
Yeah, definitely. But my number 2, I caught up on it. I started reading this line because Mason from Comics Across, who's been on one of our friends, he's been talking about it. He's been reading it since it started coming out. It's by Chip Zdarsky, and it's called Justice League: The Last Ride. Issue 5 came out this week, and I caught up into that point, and holy shit, like, this is what I want in a Justice League book. I don't understand why the current Justice League line that I dropped, the current ongoing, can't do what this does. This is so good. If you're a big Superman fan, if you're a big Batman fan, you're a Wonder Woman fan, you're an anybody fan, you're a Jon Stewart fan, you're a Hal Jordan fan, any of these characters, you will enjoy this. I promise you. And it's so character focused with the action, which I really love. So if you're avoiding Justice League books because you're like, they're not going to be that great, you really should pick this up. Like, I was shocked at how much I enjoyed it.
Lauren, is this like an in continuity story? Is it kind of like a separate kind of tale type deal, like a one-shot type situation?
I mean, it's a limited series. I don't know how, like, where in canon it falls, I guess, if that's what you're asking. So I don't know, to be fair. I don't think it really matters, though, because if you read it, it would read. It's I think it's its own separate story, because the whole premise of what's going on between the characters, they're fighting Darkseid and stuff. You're like, whatever. But the whole premise of the tension between some of the characters is because of what happens to a certain member of the League. And I won't spoil that, but that causes all the tension. So I would say it's its own story, because I don't know what story would connect to it, but it reads like it could be current continuity. It really does, in a good way.
So this was the last issue, you're saying? I
don't think so.
Oh, it's continuing. It's ongoing.
I think it's a limited series, but it goes like 8 or 10. I don't know. Let me look it up, because that issue did not read as the last issue.
I misunderstood.
I'm surprised that they don't say, if it is like a mini, they don't say 5 of 8 or 5 of 12 on the cover. I know DC's normally good with something like that.
Yeah. I'm just curious because I mean, it's Zdarsky on a Justice League book, man. I haven't picked it up, but I've been hearing that it's just a fun, like, this is a lot of similar thoughts to what you're saying. And this is what a Justice League book should be like. So, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you should really read it, Serge. Yeah. Like, in particular, like, out of all us 3, like, you should be reading this. Yeah, that wasn't the last issue. There's at least 7 coming out.
Okay, cool, nice.
But yeah.
Right on. Yeah,
really worth it.
Zdarsky, legend.
So that's your number 2, though.
Yeah. Yep, that's number 2. So my number 1, this is the first book that's ever made into my top 3 multiple weeks in a row, and it's not my fault that it just still stayed this good this week. But it came out print finally, so I can have it in my hands. This one. It's just so fun. I mean, I'm such a huge fan of the show. The characters are written so well. The dialogue's hilarious. There's comedy for literally everybody. You know, if you're a guy that likes more of the raunchy humor, it's obviously there. If you're somebody that likes the more cutesy humor, it's there. You know, it's just such a great show. And the comic mimics that very well. The art is very fun, just like the show. I'm just such a huge fan. So it nothing could knock it out this week. It had to stay number 1. If you haven't picked it up, you really, really should.
Yeah, because that made your top 3 because of the digital first release last week as well. Yeah. Okay.
Another week, not last week, but a couple weeks ago.
A couple weeks ago. Okay. Fair enough. Kind of cheating, but it's all good.
I was just gonna say, does that count if you already had it? Like,
hey, it counts if nothing else could beat it. All new books came out this week, and if you've noticed, not a single indie book made my top 3.
I know,
which I feel weird about, but that's just how it be.
You got to start picking up Porcelain.
So it's Batman Day
Joey,
weekend.
You do not have to watch the show before. You can. It would probably help a little bit, just so you can kind of get the feel of how they're written in that universe. But you can. I think you'd enjoy it even without it. Just knowing you, Joey.
All right, let me ask this question then, because I know how much you like the Harley Quinn comic series by Steph Phillips, and now this is happening, and this is part of, I guess, the show's universe. Which of the 2 Would you, if someone had to be able to just read one, which of the two would you recommend? Would you recommend them picking up the, in continuity, this is how Harley Quinn is right now in the DC universe, or would you recommend picking up this animated series comic?
I mean, it depends on a lot of things, right? The Harley Quinn is an ongoing, so if you like it, you're going to have to pay every month for that. This is a limited series to fill in between the upcoming season and the last season that just happened, so it's filling in that gap. So that's going to save you money, right? Buying a limited series versus an ongoing every month. I mean, it just depends on what you like. I mean, I'm such a sucker for how they're characterized in the show, and the show's coming up. If you want something that's just really fun, easy to read, quick, definitely this one. But if you want something where you can really get attached to Harley again, like herself, then pick up Stephanie Phillips. It just depends on what you're wanting to go for.
Perfect.
Steve, why are you making her choose? Why can't she have both?
I mean, she can.
Exactly. Thank you, Sergio. Both is the answer.
What's going on?
For the viewer who only has, in this hypothetical, it's for the viewer who only has a couple bucks in their wallet, and they want to pick one Harley Quinn book.
That. Now you're making up rules.
So, no, hold on. Steve's thinking about you viewers, guys. Yeah, I appreciate that. And thank you, live chats. Yeah, that Justice League Last Ride is not in continuity. So cool. I mean, and the reason I was asking is because a lot of times, like if it's not, it's easier to kind of just read a self-contained story, right? You're not worried about different things. So I'm gonna check that out. Okay, cool. I
mean, I've said it before. Some of the DC's best content is their stuff that is either an Elseworld or it's an out of continuity thing.
Absolutely,
there's so much more freedom to work with. These characters are archetypes. Like we already know how the character is. To put them in situations where they don't act the same way, or a different situation may have occurred to them where they're slightly different. It's a lot more enjoyable because anything can happen in these out of continuity books.
Yeah, I mean, is better. I mean, a good example for me is, everybody loves Tom Taylor's writing, right? But his best writing for me is when they're AUs. When he writes in current continuity, it's usually not as good to me. Whereas if he can do whatever he wants and make a whole new world, it's phenomenal,
That's his bread and butter. Tom Taylor's is out of continuity kind of Elseworld stories, and he's got that new one coming out, I think in a couple weeks. Or
the medieval one, the
Dark Knights of Steel,
Dark Knights of Steel. That's it. Yeah,
crazy man. Like, okay, we'll see.
And Supergirl's on it. They spoiled it with the third cover finally because Tom Taylor tried to hide it on Twitter. He's like, I can't say.
Okay, so something to look forward to, man. Okay, so Batman Day weekend, and neither one of you had any Batman books in your top three.
I mean, I have the
first. He just didn't cut it for me this week.
Hey man, I had to pick up the Batman Day freebies here. The world. So apparently this one here, it's
like a trade.
Yeah, like they're releasing like a hardcover.
I've actually seen it. So it is.
Thank you, Lauren.
It is like a hard. It is. It's a hardcover. It's about $35 around there, and it's basically all of those individual stories put into one. Wow, you went all out.
I never got the mask.
My parents brought them home. I didn't even have to get them.
I'm getting jelly. I didn't get no mask. So I had to pick up some Batman books. I grabbed the I Am Batman with the new Batman character. What's his name? Jace Fox or something like that. Yeah. So I haven't read that yet, unfortunately. I'm gonna check that out shortly. And I wanted to show off this amazing. Adam Gorham is one of my favorites. This dope variant cover to Homesick Pilots #9. Adam Gorham, Toronto artist. Man, check that out. Great series, great cover. I'm looking forward to digging into this one here. But in terms of books that I've read this week, hey, like I said, it's Batman week. Batman 89. There was quite the controversy surrounding this book. At least here on this show, man. I mean,
I'm gonna say because of my thoughts on number 1, I'm done with it. I'm not picking up number 2, 3. I'm not picking up the rest.
and I'm glad you said that because Steve, I honestly, man, I'm not just saying this. I want you to give it a second chance because number 2, I found much better much better than number one. Not the number one was bad. I voted to cop it when we had another copper drop about a month or so ago. So I understand your some of the critiques, some of the criticism surrounding it, but I honestly feel, man, if you give it a chance, you're both gonna enjoy Batman 89. So again, it's set in this universe, and I think it was you who asked, when does it take place?
Yeah, and I've heard something in terms of issue 2 that makes it a lot more confusing, because I've heard some people say after reading issue 2, they don't know where this takes place, because some of the things that happen kind of contradict what happens in Batman Returns. And then they're like, well, is Batman Returns a separate thing that happens in a different continuity? Is this like setting its own path after Batman 1 to do whatever it wants, and it's not connecting to Batman Returns? Like, I've heard some people say, what's worse, Aiden and I Reptilian?
Nothing is worse than Reptilian, bro. That was brutal. I mean, the art is gorgeous. Liam Sharp's art, he's great, but that was a rough read.
You know what? Actually, I'm going to do a hot take here. I'm going to say I enjoyed Reptilian more than 89.
That's it, folks. Have a great rest of your Sunday. We're out House of Nerds show. Man, Steve, come on now.
Okay, one Reptilian had really interesting artwork, and as much as I don't like the characterization of Batman, he is a certain type of character where he's written a certain way for, like the Frank Miller-esque type books. I felt like there was more for me to dig my teeth in with Reptilian than there is with 89. 89, I'm trying to think of what happened in issue 1 of 89, and most of it I just didn't really care for. I felt like nothing really happened in it. Why is it called 89 if it's set after Returns? I don't know if it is set after Returns.
It's the 89. It's the 89 Batman universe. It doesn't take place in the year 89. It's set. I think it's pretty clear after you read issue number 2. It's set after the events of Batman Returns. You've got some appearances by, or you have an appearance from a big Batman Returns, character in there. I don't want to spoil it for those who haven't read it yet, but it is a pretty big appearance. And if you've seen the variant covers to issue number 2, I mean, you're going to be able to put 2 and 2 together.
So I think Ian, I think he has some issues because there's some continuity issues with this. He's wearing the 89 Batsuit, and if it is set after Batman Returns, why isn't he wearing the Batman Returns Batsuit? Well,
in the back, you might have missed it. In the back, when he's in his Batcave, it shows the different Batsuits. So
you think he's just going and just picking the?
I don't know, Ian. I mean,
so Serge, you're saying it does track after Batman Returns, like it works well after Batman Returns.
So this is an older Bruce Wayne Batman. It's set at least a couple years.
Emmett coming in like a
Emmett, good friend of the House of Nerds show. I gotta disagree, buddy. It's fun. It's good. It accomplishes what it sets out to do.
What is this? Okay, hold on. While we're on this subject, what is Batman 89 set out to do other than be a cash grab for DC? In all seriousness, what is the point of this book? Why even go back to this?
I think part of it is people have always wanted to see what happens in that Tim Burton universe, right? Because we never got to see it after Returns, right? Then you had Schumacher and others take over the series, so it's continuing the 89 universe, but so it takes place in that time period. But the story it's universal. It feels modern, which is good too. It's not outdated. It's tackling some issues that could be taking place in 2021 or the 80s or the 60s. It's timeless, really. Excuse me. So I dig it. Like I said, man, it's just a fun book, but it is tackling now. You see some, it's some commentary there on some real world discussions that we could be having. It's fun, not to be taken too seriously either, though. You know what I mean? Just go in knowing, kind of what to expect, and it's cool. There's some cameos there. Psychiatrist by the name of Quinzel, just in the background type stuff. Cool stuff.
I haven't even read it, and that already makes me mad just hearing that.
Yeah, why is that?
Bruh, I don't know, man, but like, that's just cheap, a cheap shot to me.
Because you feel like they're gonna do what they did with Barbara Gordon in the first issue.
Yeah, let's not talk about that either.
Yeah.
Moving on. What else did you read, Sergio? What else made you happy?
So before we move on, though, check it out, guys. Issue number 2. Fun little ditty. The only other book, guys, I've read, I've got to show my indie love, man. So having said that, I picked up Primordial. Who's this by?
Oh,
who's this by?
Lemire.
It's our boy. Good old Canadian boy, Lemire, man. He's teaming up again with Andrea Sorrentino, his co-creator on Gideon Falls, which wrapped up, I believe, earlier this year or late last year. Primordial, man, did not disappoint. I think they're the same taste. My man Ruben, thank you, buddy. My man.
He's got one book this week, Ruben. So let us know.
So Primordial,
matches.
If you're picking up a Jeff Lemire book, he's not going to disappoint, man. This guy's he's a master of his craft. Last week it was May's book.
Yeah.
This week Primordial. And I'm a sucker for like alternate history type stories, right? So you've got the late 50s, early 60s, the space race between the US and the Soviet Union. And we know how that turned out. So this story is a twist. They sent off the monkeys and the chimps into space. The Soviets had their dog, I forget his name.
Can you put up the cover again, Sergio? I wanted to look at that, actually. I haven't seen that one.
So that's a variant you got, right?
This is the variant.
Oh, I like that a lot.
Mm-hmm. And I grabbed this one as well too here. Let me show it off here. I had to grab Christian Ward is a fantastic artist. So I had to grab this one as well.
Oh yeah, I've seen that one.
That's dope, eh? He's great.
Yeah.
He's great.
Yeah, I like both of those better than the main cover completely.
Yeah.
The main cover I wasn't feeling, to be honest. So I grabbed the two variants. So yeah, alternate history. And so where it kind of diverges off the path of real history is these animals go off into space, and something happens up there that they cancel the space race. They're like, we're not traveling to space no more, and kind of take it from there, right? Now, issue 1 is a bit of a slow burn. Not much happening, but that's okay. It's setting the what's the word I'm looking for here? It's setting the foundation, the kind of the steps there, where it's gonna go. Very interesting stuff. Solid pacing. Got a couple interesting characters in there. Highly recommend it. And Sorrentino. The thing I love about this guy's art, man, I'm gonna see if I can, like his page layouts, the way his use of panels and everything. I don't know if there's anyone who does it better right now than him. It's not your typical, kind of just different stuff, man. But just check it out. I mean, like I said, you can't go wrong with Lemire and Sorrentino. Crazy stuff.
Wait, so how do you say his name? Is it Lemire or Lemire? Because I've heard it both ways.
I pronounce it both. Whatever rolls off the tongue. Lemire, Lemire. Steve, you have a vote of how you're pronouncing his name?
So I could be misremembering, but when we had him for the Teal Comic Book Club, I believe it's. Oh, I don't want to say it because I could be wrong. Because I used to say, I'm trying to remember. I used to say it the one way, and I was wrong, and it turns out it's the other way.
So Steve casually stunting how Jeff Lemire made it to.
I'm pretty sure it's Lemire.
Jeff Lemire.
That's what I thought.
A Toronto Comic Book Club meeting back when the meetings were
in person. Yeah, we had Jeff Lemire for Essex County. He was amazing.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I'm pretty positive it's Lemire, because I used to say Lemire, and I had to like try to fix my brain on that one.
So that means you have a contact where with the last issue of May's book, we can bring him over here for our people, right?
Maybe. I don't know. I'm not a people person though.
Hey, I'd love that, man. Jeff Lemire on the House of Nerd show.
I love it too.
Jeez. Okay, let's see if we can make it happen. But yeah, you know, that was my favorite read of the week, Primordial, man. You guys, honestly, like I said, you can't go wrong. Looking forward to the mystery that's unraveling. Yeah, we can review, man. You know, some good stuff. If we missed anything, let us know in the live chats. Let us know on the socials. Hit us up. You know, give us shit, man. Like, yo, why aren't you guys copying this or reading that? I never hear about this on the show. Hey, let us know, man. You know.
Yeah, I saw Jungle Joey's comments on me not reading Hellions, and I know I've read a couple Hellions. It's amazing. I gotta get to it still. I know it's amazing. I know it's amazing.
It's ending in December. I need you to get on it before it ends.
I've got Marvel Unlimited, so I'll catch up on a bunch that I've missed.
That is a wild page. Hold on, I'll zoom in for you, Serge. There you
go. Thank you, Lauren. Sorrentino, man, he's doing crazy stuff. I think he's an Italian cat, so you know, check it out. Can't go wrong. What do we got coming up here, guys? Hey, so Cannabis, which is already available digitally.
Yep.
But it looks like the physical release is this week coming up. Steve, Lauren, tell us a little bit about this book. You know, and full transparency, guys. Wasn't able to get to this one myself. I'd like to read it, but I know Lauren and Steve have some thoughts on Cannabis by Dave Chisholm. I'll let you guys kind of take over this discussion, and you know, what are your thoughts on this book?
Lauren, I'll let you go first.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, so this is a trade paperback. If you're a huge fan of sci-fi and sci-fi stories that kind of contemplate like humanity and the human race and how we've kind of evolved ourselves and things like that, this is a read that you should read. Sorry, words. But you should definitely pick this up because it's definitely going to have you sitting there thinking like, wow. Not necessarily in terms of like, wow, this was the best thing I've ever read, but in terms of you have a lot to think about after reading it. I really like the art style for the genre it is. So it's not my personal favorite style, but it works perfectly for the sci-fi genre it is. And yeah, I think Sergio, you should read this because I think you're going to be the one out of the three of us that might like it the most. I enjoyed it.
Can we get a bit of a synopsis for those who are not familiar with Cannabis?
All right.
Rundown?
The synopsis on this is there's an astronaut lady. Here she is. She's stuck on this planet. The ship is destroyed. She's got amnesia. She doesn't know what's going on. And there's this adorable robot-like buddy named Arthur. He's amazing. And then it's pretty much just kind of her trying to kind of grasp her memories back. Like, what happened? Why is she here? Why is the ship destroyed? Who's this robot thingy named Arthur? And why is it calling, her, its mother and all this stuff? Like, there's so much happening in this where it's just a story about just a person trying to grasp the things that they lost.
Okay. And she's stuck on an asteroid, you're saying?
She's stuck on a planet.
Oh, planet. Excuse me.
Same thing when you're out in space, really.
Yeah.
If you're crashed on one thing.
On a planet.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out her next steps for survival, essentially.
Yeah, and also trying to figure out like who she is. Like, she's got amnesia. She knows nothing, and she's just completely scared, right?
Okay.
All she knows is, why am I in this suit? Where am I? What is going on? And then, in a way, it kind of reminded me of a video game because it's like immediately when she wakes up, it's like your destination is, whatever miles away from where you are. And she's like, what destination? Why am I doing all of this?
Yeah.
And then she's off.
So Jesse Lonergan's Hedra, that was all visuals. There was no text or dialogue in that book, if I'm recalling correctly. But this is like
has a lot of dialogue. There's a lot of story. I wouldn't say it's not a visual story. There is dialogue in this book.
Okay.
Most of the pages I'm showing right now just kind of show off just the different variety of the artwork here, where it does work in some of the action scenes, which I just showed in the previous page. But it also works in the bigger, grander pages too.
Yeah. Yeah. So writer and artist Dave Chisholm. And this is available on Scout Comics.
Yeah, you can, if you want the digital, you can get it right now on Scout Comics' website. If you want to wait for the trade, it should be out this week. I will say it reminded me a lot of the movie Prometheus in the same kind of way, where there's this uneasy feeling, and as you're reading the book, you're trying to put together what the mystery really is, what happened to her. And by the end of it, you're just like, oh, I didn't see that happening at all. Like it does take this nice swerve. I do recommend reading it if you're really heavily into sci-fi stories, such as like Prometheus and things like that. I think, Sergio, you might like this a lot.
Okay, I'm gonna have to check that out. Now, here's the $1 million question, Steve.
Right.
What about the font, my man? What can you tell me about the font?
I can't see any font. What are we gonna do?
I can't see anything. Yeah.
You know what? Take it from me as a font guy. It is not your standard Marvel and DC font. Like, it is doing something different. Like it makes it its own. It feels very unique for the story. I'll say that. The font, it's very unique to this story. It's not something you'd find elsewhere. Like unique New York.
There you have it, folks. Font unique to the story, man. So if that doesn't sell you on the sci-fi epic, Lauren.
I wanted to say too, so these pages that we're showing, we pick preview pages to not give too much away, but just to give a sneak peek, obviously. But I feel bad because there's some really amazing double splash pages in this book. Like if you've read, for example, if you read the current Black Widow run where they have the giant double pages of all the action going across, or even the current Nightwing with those couple pages. I'm just referencing those pages, but like these have some really cool double pages with the sci-fi stuff and the transitions and the action and movement that really blew my mind. Like, the art alone, when those pages happen, I'm just like, holy crap. Like he went all out.
Yeah. And at the back pages of it, he was talking about those specific pages in it, saying he wanted to evoke a feeling of just anxiousness for the reader, because so much is going on in those two page spreads, and there's all these little details, and it feels very overwhelming. And when I was looking at those, I was like, I can feel this. Like it feels a lot. Like I feel very kind of anxious looking at it. It's doing things to me. He totally succeeded at that.
I mean, just looking at some of these pages, you get a sense of the isolation, the darkness of space and that. So it looks fun, man. It looks interesting. I'm gonna try to check this one out. I trust your guys' instincts. So yeah, man, sci-fi, bit of a sci-fi self kind of revelation, tale. Sound about right there, Steve? Or a person kind of figuring out who they are.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, cool. I'm with Ruben here. Like, look at the little alien. If you got Eve originally because of the bear, get this because of the alien. If you're not sold, it's fine. Don't worry about it.
Arthur is great. Honestly, Arthur, he's fantastic. He's kind of the heart of the story in a way, like this comedy character where you end up kind of falling in love and feeling bad for him.
Particularly with the ending.
Yeah.
Okay. Getting you guys in the feels a little bit.
Yeah, I also like the colors used in this. It really mainly used blues and purples, and it really helped with that sci-fi setting of it. Like it feels like what you were saying, Serge. It feels like you feel the desperation, you feel the loneliness just in the tone of the book. Okay. I definitely recommend it for those who like sci-fi comic stories.
Hey, that's awesome. Hey, thank you guys for your thoughts, man. And so check it out. Cannabis. Out now, Scout Comics, man.
And I wanted to just say a personal thank you to Dave himself, because he's the one that sent it to us to review and all that and read it and see where our thoughts are. So, straight up thank you to Dave for sending it to us and wanting to hear our thoughts. And sorry it took us so long because, it's taken us a little bit longer to get to this. So.
Yeah.
But we're digging it. So yeah, thank you, Dave, man. Shout out for sending us that copy to check out. Guys, what are we talking about today? Why are we here?
We're talking about comic book adaptations.
There you go.
I mean, because something came out this last week that a lot of people are talking about that I know nothing about.
Have you read that comic series, Lauren?
Nope.
No? Okay.
I've heard of it. Don't know much.
I spent last year actually reading the entire series. I'm
definitely, and you've okay. So guys,
I haven't seen the episodes though. So I haven't seen the episodes though.
So you've read the book.
Yeah.
I haven't. I've seen the show. You haven't. So we'll see if we can kind of combine our thoughts. But today we're talking about comic book adaptations, man. Thankfully, us nerds, man, we're living in a great time in terms of the amount of content that we're getting on the big screen, the small screen, TV, theaters. Man, it seems just about everything these days, is getting optioned, picked up. And we're here to talk about some of our favorites, man, because there's like a tremendous amount of content out there for us nerds to enjoy.
I was going to say, we're also talking about the pros and cons of it, because I'm noticing a lot more reading some of these newer books where it feels like the writer or the creators are trying to just make it so that it can be adapted later on. Like some of those stories, you get that feeling when you finish it where you're like, oh, well, this is clearly just it's kind of like a pitch now. It's a pitch for a movie or it's a pitch for a TV series. And some of it can kind of take away from the comic book industry, right? Because comics are its own thing. They can do things that movies and TV shows and even video games can't do, right? And it does feel in a way like it's kind of taking away from what makes a comic when sometimes they're just being created for this adaptation, for that, that movie Hollywood money.
Yeah. So let's touch on that now, since you brought it up. Absolutely, Steve. I think right now with just the amount of things that are getting picked up, I feel like and as a reader, you're reading books that they're put out, they're printed for the purpose of in the hopes of getting picked up for a movie or a TV, because it very much reads like a pitch.
Yeah, you can feel it. Like you can feel it when you read it.
Yeah. Like it's very loud in that, like, okay, this is I'm reading a pitch for a TV show. So there seems to be some of that at times, which kind of is a shame. It sucks, because at the end of the day, if you're putting out, like, if you're writing a good story, the studios, the people in charge of, like, trying to pick up adaptations for TV, they're gonna come to you. If a good story is a good story, right? And I think as comic readers, you gotta give comic readers our credits, man. Like, we're smart, kind of pick up on that kind of stuff. So Steve, Lauren, are you feeling like there's a bit too much of that kind of happening right now in terms of books are being put out just for that purpose?
Lauren, you want to go ahead?
I don't know about books being put out for that purpose. I think it's more a book comes out, and then because TV writers or film writers don't want to write their own shit, and they already have this thing that could work, and they just want to adapt it and make money off it. I think that's what's happening. I think people are still writing. I think the authors of comics and books and all that are writing because they want to, right? They want those stories on pages and all that. And then the second comes out and it's even a little bit of success. I mean, if you think about it, every time a book is a success at this point, all of a sudden it's becoming a TV show. All of a sudden it's a film.
Yep.
Because it's such a good story, and film and TV people are like, well, why should we have to do this brand new thing when we can just adapt this and make money? And people will watch it and still enjoy it. Even the people that might be smart or might be more particular about being as close as possible to the original version, they're still going to watch it and eat it up. I mean, look at us with all the DCEU stuff and the MCU. Like, those are completely different to comics, and we still eat it up in one way or the other, whether we consume it. So
yeah. I mean, and not to single out any one publisher, but there's one particular publisher that comes to mind for me, it just seems like they're an IP farm, and that publisher being Boom, just what do you think, Steve?
Well, Boom, in a way, Boom's kind of like IDW in a way, where a lot of the stuff is they're trying to have some good feet, so they use certain IPs that are already around. IDW does the same thing with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Transformers, all these other things. Sometimes when you're just starting out, you need to use established IP to get people to come and read those books.
Yeah.
Boom does the same thing with Power Rangers, among other things, right? Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I don't discredit them for doing that, because certain things like Buffy, it's off the air. It's not a movie. They're doing its own thing. They're using that universe to kind of make more stories within that universe. I see nothing wrong with that. Same with Power Rangers. Same thing. They're telling newer stories that aren't available to tell on any kind of other screen.
Yeah.
It's more so the ones where they're making new IP and it's just specifically for adaptation. I know Ruben mentioned he thinks Nice House on the
Berserker.
Berserker's one of them, yeah.
Man.
Like it just feels that way.
Yeah.
I don't blame these companies using established IP and then making stories within that, because you have to build up viewership somehow, or you have to build up these readers in some way, and using established IP is a great way to do that.
Yeah.
So in that way, I do like the fact that we're talking now, movie or TV adaptations to comics. I think those are great too, because people like those universes. They want more stories. Why not give it to them in a new format?
Going from TV or film to comics.
Yeah, like Power Rangers.
You continue the story, continue the universe. I mean, it works both ways, right?
Exactly. Yeah. But I do see some. I think that's okay going that way.
Yeah.
But sometimes going the other way, going comic books to TV or to film.
Yeah.
I see there being pros and cons. A pro being, if you already like it and you want to see it on a different screen, you're able to, things are going to be changed. It's an adaptation. Not everything will stay the same. We know that now.
Yeah.
Even the great adaptations, some of the best adaptations on screen, things have changed. They have to. You have to adapt to that new medium.
Okay.
But I do like the fact that on those new things, it's getting new viewers. People who have never read a comic book are watching those things, and maybe they're enjoying it enough to go, hey, I can check out the comics. And whether they like it or not, at least maybe is going to get more eyeballs on the actual source of it, right?
Yeah. So you brought something out, regardless of, any adaptation, there's going to be stories or elements of the story change. Because what works in a comic book, is not always going to work, for the medium of TV or film. And I want to hear from the live chats too, guys. Steve, Lauren, what is a comic book adaptation that your opinion stuck closest to the source material? And is that your favorite or not?
I was just going to say what I comment on comics is saying. Invincible. Invincible so far, in terms of Invincible season 1 on Amazon, it's stuck really close to the comics. And and it's stuck really close to comics. And they've also added things. They've changed things. So certain characters, they've changed a bit. They're more involved in the story. For instance, in Invincible, the mom, she's more involved in the story than she was in the comics. And I feel like this adaptation has really helped kind of give the writers, give the creators, it allows them more time to go, what did we do wrong when it first came out? What can we fix? And I feel like Invincible is a really solid adaptation. The Boys too. The Boys is a really solid adaptation.
Have you? Okay, so Invincible is a good one. It's recent, it's fresh in our minds. Invincible. So I watched the show before I read the books. I've actually had the first 2 volumes several years. Never got around to it. Checked out the show. First 2 or 3 episodes was really a bit of a slog for me. Slow. I wasn't really feeling it. I'm not big on animated series to begin with, so it was a bit of a hard sell for me personally.
I like this comment from Ian because he said, but it's anime, which is kind of cheating, and that's my point. I think the best comic adaptations typically are animated. I think animation allows for the smoothest and the most accurate transition from book or comic to film or TV. Animation allows you to do that so smoothly, whereas once you get to live action, there's a lot more you have to change in that medium. And I kind of hate that, so many people, which is fine, again, it's a personal preference, but I don't like that people are deterred by animation, because animation is absolutely amazing, particularly for the comic medium and particularly for the superhero medium. It's the gold mine. And I'm hoping that, like the MCU and DC, they continue to do more animation. Like, I love the What If series for Marvel. The animation style is not my favorite, but the overall concept and what they're able to do with that they can't do live action, I'm here for. So I think more people should embrace the animation side of things. If you want more comic book accuracy, that's how you're going to get it.
So you're talking comic book accuracy, how animation lends itself, for a better transition from the source. Give me then one
live action?
No, animated adaptation that you're like, this is works, this is the source material, that we should be checking out here.
Invincible, for starters. I think it should be the top. I think it should be the top of in terms of animated shows.
Batman the animated series is a classic. Too, yeah. I mean,
Young
even the
Justice.
Spider-Man one was pretty good.
But Batman the animated series, did that start as a show, or was did the comic come first?
The show came first, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So I'm talking like, animated shows that's adapted from the comic books, right?
I mean, Batman the animated series adapted from Batman comics.
The X-Men 90s show, right? Yeah. That came out during the 90s as the comics were being made, and they actually used 90s X-Men characters, but told stories that were told in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, which was really cool. And that's one of my all-time favorite cartoons, even though it's not the most accurate. When they tell with the characters and stuff, everything else is accurate. Like, that's the best retelling I've ever seen of the Phoenix Saga. It's amazing.
I love. I mean, listen, I grew up on X-Men the animated series. Is one of the reasons I fell in love with that franchise. It's classic, man.
Yeah.
I think the animated series was better than any in terms of, sticking to the source material, to the books.
Yeah.
They've done better by far than any of the films released.
Absolutely.
Since then. Like, it's not even close.
Yeah.
They're like, the animated series is here, and then you got the films. Not in terms of entertainment, but just like, staying true to like what made the X-Men so great in the comic books, right? Especially during that time period in the 90s. Man, it's a classic that I recommend to everybody. I mean, you get some, and, the classic intro song, right? You gotta love it. You hear it, and I'm getting the goosebumps, the chills. But we were talking about Invincible. Much like the book, the show started off slowly, right?
Yeah.
And then it picks up like big time. So I'm at the part in the graphic novels. I've only read the first 2 volumes. Very slow, and I'll be honest, I stopped reading because I'm like, whoa, this is like, to be honest, it's a bit of a hard read in terms of
absolutely.
The board.
I've mentioned, for those who really liked the Invincible show and want to get into the comics, you have to make it to issue 10 and 11. So the show and the comic series did something different, whereas the show it immediately in that first episode near the end of it, it gets you in. You as the audience now knows something huge that happened, and then you're just waiting for the fallout of that, right? The comic series does it the other way. So the comic series is a slow build up to about 10 or 11 issues. At a certain point, something will happen, and then you're like, this is really what Invincible is. So it takes its time trying to say, hey, you should get used to these characters in this world and all this stuff. And then while you're eased into it, you're like, okay, Invincible's kind of cool. I guess it's kind of like Ultimate Spider-Man. You're just following a teenager origin story. And then something big happens, and you're like, this isn't like what I thought it was. Yeah. But it fools you. It makes you invest a bunch of time until, issue 10 and 11 happens. And then at that point, you're like, this is what Invincible is. This is how it's different. It takes a lot of time to get into it, to be honest.
Yeah, and everybody has been telling me the same thing. We're talking both, Ian, So I stopped at right at the point where the Invincible book takes off. Everybody's like, no, bro, just continue. That's the point where you're like, okay. So I'm gonna hop back in.
Yeah, the TV show did it in episode 1.
Yeah.
The book did it.
Yeah.
It took a while.
And you've read the Invincible.
I've read all series, of it. Yeah.
The whole thing. So that, in your opinion, good adaptation?
So far for season 1, absolutely.
Yeah? Okay,
absolutely. Cool. They've done really, really good at sticking to the tone of the series. And again, like I've said, they fleshed out characters that they never really fleshed out in the comics.
That's dope. That's dope. A lot of stuff in the live chats for Scott Pilgrim. Okay, I'm gonna give y'all a bit of a hot take.
Oh no.
I know I'm gonna catch flack. I know I'm gonna catch flack for this.
Hold on, you know it's a Toronto story, right?
I know. That's what kills me, man. You guys know, man. I'm a big Toronto guy, always repping. I love my city. Anything that takes place in here, comics wise, but I couldn't get into Scott Pilgrim.
Get out.
Other than the Toronto angle for me. I know.
Steve, if it helps, I could get into it. I haven't watched it since high school though, so that was 10 years ago, probably now. Jesus. But I mean, I think it's one of those things where you just have to really be in the mindset of that silly kind of humor, and you have to just be like, "This is good." It's one of those things. It's like Rocky Horror Picture Show. It's a cult classic. Like you're either down with the cult or you're not. Like,
I think Scott Pilgrim works for those who it melds of worlds, right? It melds the comic book readers who are usually very similar with video gamers. A lot of times they enjoy the same things. And I think Scott Pilgrim, it's a love of both. Like it shows, it's a love of that. And it's also a love of Toronto too. And all of that can mix really well. I will say, because this is a nerd show, I'm allowed to say this on here. I ended up doing what's called a Scott pilgrimage a couple of years ago during one summer in Toronto. We ended up going to all the different film locations of the movie, as well as all the different locations used in the books, because sometimes they interact and sometimes there's stuff that happens in the book never happened in the movie. So we checked out all the different areas, and it was a really wild day.
Okay. Hey, listen, man, that actually sounds like a great idea. What do you guys think? So I'm already catching some flack. Do I need to give specifically the live action movie another chance, guys, in the audience? Let me know. Am I dropping the ball? What am I missing, Steve? So you think that's another top tier adaptation?
In terms of adaptations,
yeah.
In terms of the actual comic source, it's stuck really close to the comic source. If we're just talking adaptations and it's sticking to source, Scott Pilgrim did really well at it. It made its own tone, but it also worked with what the book was too. I don't think the movie's for everyone. Honestly, I wouldn't recommend it to my parents. They wouldn't enjoy it. I don't think.
Thanks, Chris.
If you didn't like it, Serge, you didn't like it. It's not for you. It's not for the type of person you are. That's perfectly fine. But in terms of it being an adaptation of the comics, I think it did a really nice job at it.
Okay. I might have, maybe I wasn't in the mood for it. I was in the right frame of mind. So I'll give it another shot, and then I'm gonna I'll share my thoughts on next week's episodes. And you guys know, if I still don't like it, I'll give you my reasons. Maybe hopefully I'm not canceled. But hey, it looks like there's some other people who are not.
Yeah, it's not for everyone.
Yeah. Which is crazy. I'm glad, it took a lot of, I was nervous coming out and saying that. I thought I was going to get shit on because it's one of those beloved cult classics, and I was more worried what Steve, I didn't want you to think less of me, buddy, being both from Toronto and Scott Pilgrim. So, but
it's okay. But there's a lot of certain adaptations in terms of live action. Serge, what in your opinion is one adaptation that actually did well? It did the tone of the book, it did everything justice. You think it couldn't have done any better?
Honestly, guys, my all-time favorite adaptation and the balance of sticking to the source material and changing enough that it works for the big screen is, without a doubt, Watchmen.
I'll agree with that. Yeah. I know a lot of people don't like it, but in terms of what it did for the story, I think Watchmen did it did the tone really well.
Oh, it nailed the tone, And for me, what I loved it is, as much as it stuck to that source material, and it did it so well, it changed enough that it made it work. Like like the aspect, even when I read Watchmen before I watched the film. I always thought the idea of that interdimensional, the space,
the
creature coming in, I always found that it was the one thing about the book that it didn't, it felt funny.
Right.
And so, the Watchmen movie, the filmmakers, Snyder and everyone else involved in that, they switched it up with the Manhattan kind of, energy being the cause of the destruction. I thought that was amazing.
I agree with you. Yeah. I think using Manhattan as the actual crux for it, I think it works better in terms of the story. And I think the book should have had that originally. I think the show's different in terms of an adaptation because the show is really a sequel to the comic series. I think trying to watch the show and maybe not reading any of the comics is, I think it's a lot harder for viewers to understand what's actually going on. But I do want to mention before we forget, because we're talking adaptations here, because both Lauren and Sergio did not know anything about this next property. But Chris brought up.
Wait, what are you bringing up? What's going on?
What about Dredd?
Hey, there you
go. Dredd 3D. We'll say the movie with Carl Urban. Honestly, it's a great adaptation. You don't need to know anything about Judge Dredd. Watch the movie for like an hour and a half of good fun. It's amazing. Check out Dredd the movie. I can't say that enough. Serge, you would love Dredd the movie. You would love it.
Steve, and a little, for everyone who's watching this, you guys don't know. Every week, just about every week, Steve is pushing for some kind of Judge Dredd content on this show. He's a big fan, and for good reason. Hey, I dig the original, and I dig the remake. Just fun, kooky films. And actually, later on in the show, there's something that I want to compare Judge Dredd to that we've all read. But what for you, Steve and Lauren, if you've watched it as well, what makes Judge Dredd a good comic book adaptation in your opinion?
I think the fact that it stuck to what the character was, and Carl Urban, I think he should be given a lot of credit for that, because he said specifically he didn't want to show his face because Judge Dredd never shows his face. And as much as the people behind the scenes, as much as, the big people with a good parking spot say, hey, we need a big money name like Carl Urban, we need you to show your face. He said no. He said, the character does not do this. I'm not taking this helmet off. And they stuck with that. Like, he stuck his gun out because he appreciates the actual character and the story of Judge Dredd. And he doesn't want his face shown because that goes against what the character is. Yeah. And I love the fact that you have a movie that really, really cares for the source and didn't change a fundamental aspect of the character.
No, we're talking about the sequel here, obviously, because
we're not talking the Stallone one. We're talking the Carl Urban one. We're talking the redo one.
Yes.
The good one.
I have Joey here calling me out on my fun or kooky. I would say the Stallone it's campy. And it probably, I'd say, Steve, it doesn't do nearly as good a job of sticking to like the characters.
Yeah. I think the Urban one. I think I'll say Dredd 3D is what it was called when it came out in theaters.
Yeah.
I think that does a better job at being an adaptation, because it's not campy or goofy or anything. It's just this action movie, and it's following very close to what the comics were.
Yeah. A lot of great stuff out there. Lauren, did you have I don't know if an absolute favorite? I know you mentioned some of like the animated stuff, X-Men, but live action.
The animated stuff is always going to be better, I think, no matter what. But in terms of live action, something that's hard, because all the stuff I like hasn't had the best comic book adaptation. So like, I'm not into Why the Last Man. I'm not into Watchmen and, you know, all these other things. I think a lot of the more the indie or the smaller things that get adapted, they tend to get the best adaptations live action, which is wonderful, as they should. But like all the big stuff I love, like the X-Men, they haven't gotten that's just a mess, and
Mm-hmm.
all these other things I care about. And I don't know. I think I'm still waiting, to be fair. I think, there's films I'll be nostalgic for, but I think I'm still waiting for the best live action to really hit me personally. But there are some good ones. Like, I've seen people in the chat talking about, like, why aren't we talking about Doom Patrol?
Yeah.
I don't read Doom Patrol. I don't watch the show. My sibling Skylar loves it. I hear it's amazing. I trust
it's a great show.
judgment.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, again, I'm just kind of waiting for the best adaptation, everything I love has gotten kind of a crappy adaptation so far. So
Okay. So you're waiting for that one just kind of to just really hit you and be like, that's it for me.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah, but I will say, I know Ian in the chat said V for Vendetta. That's a really good one nobody talks about, and I kind of hate that that's under talked about because that's a phenomenal and still very timely film and story in general.
V for Vendetta is a good one.
Yeah.
That's true. You're right. I think that's not spoken about enough in terms of, like, the better quality ones. And we got a comment here. Attack the Block. So the film came first, and then there was a comic book made. Because I'm not too sure about that one, but Attack the Block. I don't know if you guys have watched it. It's with a buddy from Star Wars. What's the name? The main actor.
Mark Hamill?
Not Oscar Isaac. No, sorry, the new Star Wars films. It's a young
the guy who plays Finn.
His name. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, Finn. A young Finn.
Yeah.
A young Finn. Hey, Attack the Block is now that's kooky, that's campy, that's crazy. Check that out.
Yes, John Boyega. Thank you.
John Boyega, thank you. And Tierney Ian, always coming through.
Doing Sergio's homework for him.
I mean, everybody came through.
Everybody. Yeah,
all the interns today, Sergio.
People love Boyega. Who knew?
This is why you guys are the best, man. But before we move on from this, just quickly, I think we need to talk about, in terms of, do you think these TV shows and these films being made now, it's bringing a different audience to the comics? Like, are comic creators and these publishers, are they reaping the rewards of this golden age of, like, comic book movies and shows? Or is it just really now all these things are kind of detracting from the source material? And we need, as an audience, need to do better of, like, hey, you like that film, check out this book, or give them props to the creators and stuff, right?
Yeah, I would say, in terms of people who absolutely loved the film or TV adaptations, I think those people who are fanatics for that, they're going to get in the comic series, whether they did it before the thing, before they watch the thing, or after. I think it's going to lead eyeballs one way to the comic series for those fanatics.
I would hope so.
For casual audiences, it won't. But what it will do is it will become like a brand for them. Like, it's a recognition. So if they hear that title or they see that title or something, they know, oh, that was a thing. And I think that's I think there's good to be said in that, because a lot of times we're reading all of these indie comics like Porcelain or something, right? Where I say Porcelain, no one other than a comic reader is going to know what Porcelain is, right? But if it has some sort of adaptation, whether it's on the silver screen, it's a horror movie or something like that, there's at least something where I can say to some of my other friends who don't read comics, I'll mention Porcelain. They'll know what it is, right? And it's that same way. I think there's something to be said about casual audiences knowing the IP.
Yeah. Good thoughts, Steve. First thought. What? Quickly, give me an adaptation from that you sign. You're like, man, what did they do to these characters, to this IP that just fell flat for you? Or do you have any? Or are you digging everything? Is there something that comes to the mind? And guys in the live chat,
there's so many.
There is so many.
That's the problem. I mean, the Fantastic Four films, a lot of the X-Men films, all the Wolverine films, except Logan. I mean,
okay,
I think there's so many.
That's just a start, and that's just Marvel. Like, I haven't even touched DC. I haven't touched any indies. Like,
okay.
Why
is nobody talking about Deadpool in terms of great adaptation?
I think Deadpool did really well, and I think
Deadpool
that was dope.
Deadpool.
I haven't seen Deadpool.
Well, that's the thing. So Deadpool's not the most comic accurate in terms of story or other characters, but he's most accurate in terms of Ryan Reynolds getting him right and characterizing him right, which is why it's such a good adaptation. And I think that's a lesson a lot of franchises need to take to heart is you can get other details kind of mixed up or tweak them a bit, but if you get that one character right and you get them so right, it doesn't matter. Like, why do you think Hugh Jackman's Wolverine got so many films? Not because those were good films, but because Hugh Jackman as Wolverine was perfect, you know?
I love that. That's a great point, Lauren. That's a great point because the characters were nailed. The characters themselves, man. Yeah.
Like the Daredevil show. Like the Daredevil Netflix show. Like it was like everything was so well for it because they understood the characters. They got actors who knew the characters and portrayed them properly. And then they told stories that were adapted from the comics and everything hits so well. Like there's a love for that you can feel.
Thank you. And then live chat, man. You're like, nobody brought up Daredevil season 1, which to me is the absolute best, comic book TV series of anything that's been put out. That season 1 was just, I was blown away. Yeah. Blown away. Season 2 and season 3, they took a dip in quality, but I think season 1 of Daredevil can be put up against anything. Yeah, honestly.
Yeah.
Honestly.
And I think the problem is it's so hard now to know which of the adaptations did something really well because there's so many that did things terribly. Yeah. Like I've never seen the movie. I know people who've read Valerian.
Game changer.
Whatever Valerian, I don't know the subtitle of that movie, right? Okay. But it was based on a graphic novel or based on a comic series. And the people who've read that said that is not this at all in any way. I think there's so many adaptations where it doesn't hit the mark. So it's hard to remember when it did. Like I'm thinking like Lock and Key. There's a lot of fans of the Lock and Key Netflix series.
Yeah.
As a fan of the comic series, it's not the same.
Not so much, eh?
The tone is completely different, but I do appreciate the fact that more people are going to know about the characters and what Lock and Key, the property, is. Mm-hmm. It's not the best adaptation, but it's you have to change things for the medium. They had to change a few things to be accessible for casual audiences and for it to be a series, right?
Yeah.
I forgot. I've never watched it. I've never read Valerian. I just know online people have said it's one of the worst comic adaptations.
Okay. And disagreed. There's no way season 1 is not better than Jessica Jones, Joey. I will argue and I'll fight you on that. We'll have a debate to the death on this one. Season 1. I think someone else earlier said it. It really is perfection. Hey, at the end of the day, man, us nerds, we're living. Great content. I'd say there's more great content than not so great content by far. So hey,
that's coming nowadays.
Yeah,
it's not balanced yet, but I'm hoping it will be soon.
Hopefully, we'll get there. Enjoy it, nerds. Enjoy it. We're in the golden age, man, for comic book media, man. Not too shabby, not too shabby. Steve.
Yes, sir.
What's going on with Teal Comic Book Club these days?
A lot is happening. This upcoming week, we are hitting our 3-year anniversary for the Teal Comic Book Club. 3 years. And with that, we are actually going back to where it all started. And we're doing a reread of Vision, Volume 1 and Volume 2 by Tom King. This was the first thing that we ever read for Teal Comic Book Club. And we think it's only fitting, since it's the 3-year anniversary, to go back to it and see what people thought. Either it's a reread for some or it's a first read for others. I'm looking forward to this chat. So Vision, Volume 1 and 2, at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday on our Discord. Go to our Twitter at TO Comic Book Club. There you will find our Discord link and come join the conversation. And I hope you love Vision as much as I ended up loving it. And I would love nothing more to have a lot of people come into the chat so we get a variety of different opinions on Vision Volume 1 and 2.
Man, you guys started off TO Comic Book Club 3 years ago with Vision, a great a great first book to discuss and review. 3 years. I've been meaning to get to this Tom King classic for several years now. I think I'm gonna try to get there, man. Give me, this is the excuse I needed to check it out. I've heard nothing but good things on that. So hey, congrats on 3 years, man.
Thank you. It's been a lot of fun.
Congrats on 3 years, guys. So if you can, please make it out to Tuesday night's Discord. After that, you don't ever have to show up. But come on, it's Steven's birthday. It's the Teal Comic Book Club birthday. Come out for that one. It's a good time, man. Good people's.
Bring the cake. Clothes are optional per surgery rules, but don't worry about that.
It's voice only. You can be completely new. Doesn't matter.
See if you can learn what Sergio's voice sounds like when he's nude versus clothed.
Yeah.
Heavy breathing. No, we won't go down there. Yeah, check it out. 3 years, man. Copper drop.
We said we'd bring this book back because we weren't able to do it when it officially was voted by the audience.
Yeah.
So, Serge, do you want to say what happened?
What's going on? Because I could have sworn I finally won after about 3 months of not winning a copper drop. I finally won one last week. Night of the Cadillacs. Was looking forward to that Scout Comics joint. But man, delayed. Yes, I am, Steve, Chris. Absolutely, man. That's my bread and butter, baby.
Digital, Tara, digital. You got to get it on the computer. I'm so sorry, but that's how they're doing it to us.
Scoutcomics.com.
So last week we were supposed to do, or excuse me, this week we're supposed to read and discuss Night of the Cadillacs. It's delayed. So next up, Mullet Cop, which you, the audience, voted about 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
It's giving us the opportunity to vote on what you guys wanted to read. Steven's pick, Mullet Cop, Scout Comics. What are your guys' thoughts on this book here? Lauren, why don't we kick it off with you? What are you thinking, man? I mean, hey, it's a book titled Mullet Cop.
You should not start with me. That's what I'm thinking. Is you should not start with me. Yeah.
Shall we get Steven to get the ball rolling then? Do you want to warm things up for us and then we'll get Lauren's thoughts in a sec?
I think Lauren's going to have a drastically different opinion than me.
I'll go first because I read this yesterday and I was sitting there reading it and I was like, everybody's going to love this. And I hate it because I didn't hate it as that's the worst thing I've ever read, but oh my God, it's like an 80s film that's supposed to be very silly and goofy, right? Like that's the tone of it. And I was down for that, but it wasn't funny. Like
you didn't find it funny?
80s tone book with dialogue that's so dead. Like it wasn't funny to me. And that's what kind of lost me. I was like, why? Like the point of this is to be so goofy and silly and make fun of itself. Like I knew that the second we chose this book. But it didn't do that for me at all. It seemed like it actually took itself seriously. And I was like, nope. The art style doesn't do much for me. It fits the tone of, like I said, an 80s book and stuff. I get that. But yeah, like, man, I just wanted it to be funny and silly. And it wasn't even funny to me, which was disappointing for me. So I did not care for it personally. But I know what it was going for. And like I said, as I was reading it, I was like, I'm probably the one crazy person that doesn't like it because everybody else is probably going to love it as I read it. So,
Okay. Hey, kind of like everything though, right? Steven, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. What are you thinking about this bad boy?
All right. So for starters, I found a few things I actually ended up laughing out loud. So Lauren's comment on it being not funny is really interesting for me because maybe it was the way I was reading it. I was picturing this dude, Fred, his voice as Danny McBride.
Yes!
From like Tropic Thunder or from like Eastbound and Down. Eastbound and Down. I was honestly, yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Every time I heard Fred talk, I'm like, that's just Danny McBride right there. And like so much of the dialogue he comes off as just like really like just, I don't know about dumb, but like matter of fact. He kind of dumb, but kind of matter of fact. There's a lot of jokes where like there's this MIT. It's a futuristic microwave with supercomputers in it, and it talks. And it's very like Adult Swim. It feels like it's like an Adult Swim comic, series or something like that. Yeah. It's very absurd and like a cartoony adult absurd for the sake of being that way. And some of the dialogue I found to be a bit stilted and a bit weird, but other parts of it I found to just be really funny. But I think that was partly my by the way that I was using Danny McBride as the voice for Fred, and he just it cracked me up so much the way he was responding, and I could like hear that low voice. What are your thoughts, Serge?
First of all, thank you for validating that I'm not the only one who had Danny McBride's voice in the head of our main character, Fred. Let me hit you guys with a quick synopsis here. So this play takes place 17 years after a robot mutant war of some kind, which has ravaged the planet. Mega malls have become, these big centers of congregation, kind of reigniting the world. Much like Judge Dredd, you have these.
I was just gonna say it's like a funny Judge Dredd.
Thank you, Steve.
Like Paul Blart. It's like Paul Blart. It's like Paul Blart, but instead of Kevin James, it's Paul Blart with Danny McBride mixed with Judge Dredd.
Okay, Paul Blart meets the Mall Cop meets Judge Dredd meets Mad Max. Thunderdome meets
none of this makes
meets Hunger Games.
Can one of you tell me like a funny line that was in there, like literally, because I didn't find anything funny. So like, can you seriously point out like off the top of your head a dialogue that stuck with you that you said that shit was hilarious?
The conversation between him and his boss about it being a microwave. And him reply, "It's a microwave," and it's like, it's not a microwave. It's so much more.
So dumb.
I mean,
hey, no, Joey, you know what? I got plenty of bro stories. That one was just beyond just like, I think it was such a low level bro humor that I couldn't appreciate.
I legitimately laughed out loud at least twice while reading this book. At least twice.
Oh, for sure. A couple more times than that for me. I mean, listen, you've got cyborgs, excuse me, shooting lasers out of their eyeballs. You got mutants. You got a little person in the vein
Not
of
real mutants.
What was that James Bond knick-knack? That little villain from like the 70s, the little person, a fashionista assassin. You got 80-year-old granny, wheelchair-bound granny.
Mall cops on like these assault type vehicle segways.
Okay. You got an 80-year-old wheelchair-bound boss lady, okay, machine gun toting. This is balls to the walls crazy. It shouldn't work, but it does.
And it doesn't.
But it does.
I would say in terms of the story, it's not a heavy story. It's not going to make you feel like emotionally attached to these characters. In terms of like Teal Comic Book Club, we have different like labels for books. I'd call this one a candy comic. It's flashy, it's fun, it's very light. It's kind of a palate cleanser. If I'm reading Porcelain and then I'm reading Mullet Cop next, Mullet Cop is going to ease me into something a little bit more positive and fun, and it's going to take my mind off some of the other serious stuff. It's a fun candy comic. It's like a Jolly Rancher in your mouth.
Yes, and I love the flavor. I'm gonna suck that Jolly Rancher dry. I want more. This is just listen, man.
Serge, there's so many things I wanted to say, like so many jokes I wanted to make after you said that.
Do it up. You need content like this, man. Just kooky, crazy fun. It accomplishes 100% what it sets out to do. Does the art style remind you a little bit of King of the Hill? That kind of, what I mean?
And that's also a turn off for me because that's an Adult Swim cartoon I don't care for. Like, there's quite a few that I love of those things, but yeah, like
you don't like King of the Hill?
Just never did anything. It wasn't like terrible. It wasn't like I was offended or anything. But I was just like,
hold on, Lauren. You don't like King of the Hill? That's it, folks.
How many times have we broke you this episode?
At least a couple.
Man, you guys are killing me today with these takes. But
Tara,
man,
why would you put this in the live chat?
Yeah, I think we all have. Yeah, but listen, if you guys just
want keeping it clean, guys.
Like Steve puts it, a good old fashioned palate cleanser, fun, zaniness. Check it out, man. There's a scene in there with some pre-workout protein powder that if you're not my dude, I was in stitches. I'm like, this shit's too much.
It's like an 80s sci-fi movie. It's like an 80s comedy sci-fi movie. I think
it's my dad's sense of humor, and that's why I roll my eyes at it, because it's the low humor that my dad will cackle at. He'll chuckle at other things, but he'd cackle at that. And I'd be like, bro, it's not even that good.
I would say this kind of equates to, Lauren, this is gonna be a hot take for you, but prepare yourself. I would say in terms of it being like a candy comic, it kind of reminds me of Harley Quinn in a way. Like the Harley Quinn annual that we ended up reading.
Dang, you chose violence.
Hold on, let me explain though. The Harley Quinn annual that we ended up reading for Copper Drop, it did the same thing for this. It was something that, in terms of the other books I was reading, it was different because of how fun it was, how light it was. It didn't take itself seriously at all, and part of what made the book really good was, in my opinion, the colors of the book. Like, it pops to the point where you're like, this is very different from the other stuff. It's making me think differently. It's giving me a different emotion. It's actually a book that it should be making me happy to read it, not introspective or serious or sad or terrible or like terrifying or anything. It's like a happy book.
Thanks, Joe.
Half of what you're saying is accurate in terms of the Harley. So like the one from this week, is that the one you're talking about? The Harley Quinn book I talked about this week?
No. The annual that we read for Copper Drop.
The other one? Okay.
A couple weeks ago.
So that I see what you're saying. I disagree a bit in terms of Harley Quinn is more layered in terms of, she's got all this goofy stuff going on the outside. And you do see that a lot, but underneath it all, she's still trying to figure out where, in the current line, she's trying to get back to Ivy, which now she's found Ivy in Fear State, but that's a whole different situation because she's separating two different entities and she's got all these other themes going on. And so you clearly haven't read it because there's more going on than just a candy comic.
So
that's why I disagree, not just because I like her, but
I would say
it's definitely not just a issue read and you're like, woohoo, that was so silly. I forget about life completely, but it is lighter at times for sure.
I mean, for me, I'm just basing it off of the annual that we read. Sergio and we never ended up reading any of the other Harley Quinn stories, which the annual was a part of. Yeah. So just taking the annual at face value, it is that like light.
Oh yeah, that was that story. Issue, but that doesn't represent the entire line as a whole.
No.
But that issue, that's fair. Yeah.
Basing like issue to issue. This is the first of Mullet Cop. We don't know anything about the character. There's clearly a whole world here that has happened and is happening.
And I'm here for it.
But we're just basing it off of that one issue that we've read. And I see those parallels with that in the annual that I read, because there's a lot happened with the Harley Quinn comic series, like you talked about, Lauren, but I know nothing of it. So I'm going in.
And that's why you should read it before you talk about it. Excuse you. Chris, I think
Mullet Cop is very similar.
It sounds like a cop. Which is great.
The official, I think it's clear Lauren's position on this one. It's pretty clear. Steve and Mai's position. We're digging it, man.
It's just a fun read. Don't take it seriously. It's a lowbrow comedy, fun read.
It's not even funny though. The dialogue was too bland.
I wouldn't even say lowbrow. They know what they're doing. It's just they hit the nail on the head. Joe, it's good fun.
I was just saying these things to get me up.
When you have a microwave talking supercomputer.
Why?
Listen,
why?
Because it's 80s sci-fi. Why not?
Great. And just quickly.
Like he's seriously talking to it. Like there's no jokes about it. It's just like, look, a talking microwave. And then he keeps walking. I'm like,
it's fantastic.
Bruh.
Fantastic. And let's give some credit to the art too. I love I dig the color palette.
Yeah.
Similar to that of Everyone is Tulip. You've got like those aquas and the blues and the purples. Did you catch that, guys?
Yeah. As Lauren would say, the bicolors.
There you go.
Oh, hi.
There you go. So how Lauren didn't like this is beyond me. I don't get it.
Pastels. They need to be deeper.
Hey,
that's what she said. Anyways,
I do want to say,
guys, check it out. Sorry,
I do want to say for Chris, because Chris is wondering. I'm going to try to find it. You don't need to try. Scoutcomics.com. You can buy the digital edition there.
Yep.
It's just that easy.
We got it off of Scout's web store there. It's right there. Yeah, man, check it out, guys. You
don't take it seriously though. Yeah, it's just fun. Just
have fun with it. Have fun with it. And
you know what? I should do a story time, reading every page in the most Jed voice possible.
That's how I read his voice though, with Danny McBride.
I'm gonna read it in the most serious voice so people understand.
Yeah. Thank you. Who's the? We need to give props to the who's the creator on this.
Tom Lintern.
Tom Lintern. Shout out Tom Lintern. Thank you. You made my night. I had dreams of one day achieving mullet cop status. It was dope. I dig it, man. Shout out Scout.
All right, Chris, get your copy of Mullet Cop. We'll do a read along together.
Just do it up. Do it up. I'll pay to see you too.
And it's I do want to say for people who are picking it up, it is definitely longer than a regular single issue would be.
Yeah,
it
is
so
long. It's so long.
It's like
so
62 pages or so. Like it's pretty long for a single issue. So if you're looking at the price and you're like, why does it seem such like a high price for number one? It is a lot of pages.
Yeah, I'd say it's about it's at least 60 plus pages. So you're getting your money's worth. Scout, we dig you guys, man.
I do want to say one negative is, I don't know if this is for all Scout books, but the quality of the digital issue that I ended up reading, it was very pixelated. I don't know if it was compressed too much or something like that. It didn't look as clear or as clean as
some other
as I expected it to be for a digital. Okay. I will say going in, if you're getting the digital, I don't know. I don't know why it seemed so compressed. You could literally see the JPEGs.
Oh, really, eh?
Yeah, like it's very pixelated.
I didn't notice that, but okay. Good thing that you brought that up.
That means Cop Mullet Cop, and then we gotta get somebody to read something this week, right? We gotta decide next week's.
It feels like forever since I've had to choose for a copper drop. So I'm looking forward, Lauren, Steve, what you guys have in store for me. Who wants to go first? Are we flipping a coin a la Two-Face, or what's going on here?
I'll let you pick, bud.
Yeah? Steve, let me hear your pitch, bro.
All right. My pick. Now, sorry, Lauren. Sorry, you're going to go after because I think Sergio's going to pick mine. My pick is from Ablaze. It is He Who Fights with Monsters, number 1. And the reason I think Sergio's going to love this is because, Serge, I know you, bud. I know you like Something Is Killing the Children, right? I know you like that, and I know specifically in our chats of that, you're always like, yo, man, yo, bro, that artwork of Something Is Killing the Children, bro. The artwork is so dope. You've got to read it, bro. Something Is Killing the Children. That artwork, bro, is so good.
Okay.
I don't know if you can see this or not. The artist of He Who Fights with Monsters, number 1, is Werther Dell'Edera, who is the artist of Something Is Killing the Children. And I know you dig that artwork, bud. He Who Fights Monsters is definitely your pick.
What's it about? You didn't tell me anything it's about.
I'll get to that, Lauren. Don't worry. It's set in World War II.
Boy.
Here's what the summary says. On All Hallows Eve, I know you like Halloween, a community struggles under the boot of the Nazi war machine when supernatural forces come to play a part in the conflict. From the artist of the best-selling Something Is Killing the Children, bro, comes a Halloween tale that will send shivers up your spine. It's World War II, Serge, and the struggle between good and evil is in full force. In Prague, the great Bohemian city is being oppressed by the Nazi occupation. I know you like seeing Nazis get punched in the face.
I do.
And the population lives in terror while the resistance forces try to organize themselves in the shadows. It is an almost impossible task, with the ruthless SS tightening their grip on every street and neighborhood. With overwhelming might, only one hope feeds the struggle. A crazy hope, which rests on the fragile foundations of an ancient, monstrous legend. We're talking Something is Killing the Children artists. We're talking supernatural forces. We're talking World War II near Halloween. Serge, mic drop. I know you love all those things.
Where do I get? So I've never heard this publisher before. Like, in all seriousness, I've never heard this publisher. Where would I get this?
Ablaze is who did Porcelain right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I
gotta think if my shop carries that. Okay. Yeah. Cool.
It is definitely going to be available.
I do like the cover a lot. Not that's my opinion that matters, but I'm not a fan of the whole World War stuff and throwing supernatural stuff into it. Like, meshing that history doesn't usually work well for me.
But as Serge said earlier,
but that's just me.
As Serge said earlier in his week in review, he loves it when history's changed a bit, just like in, what was your top pick for this week, Serge? Primordial, where it's history being changed.
Okay.
I think
this also just sounds like an attempt to do what Philadelphia's already been doing.
And Serge loves Philadelphia, though. It sounds like it's a great pick for Serge.
But what if it doesn't do it as well? It looks really good, and I love the cover again. Like, I'm not sure it'll get written the way he wants, because it has to have a lot of the supernatural stuff for Sergio. And if it goes too much into history and not enough of the supernatural, like, the dude might fall asleep, bro.
He might fall asleep.
Lauren's got a point.
Or it might be your new Something is Killing the Children.
That's, bro. How can you say that about any comic?
Lauren,
Steven, don't rely too heavily on the SI Something is Killing the Children angle, okay, buddy?
I'm just saying, all of the things that you love.
That's all I'm hearing about this book is Something Killing Children, Something Killing Children. Oh, by the way, look, Something's Killing Children. I'm like, okay, we get it. Just read Something's Killing the Children if you want it. Like,
no, because you don't need to just read that. You can read something new, Serge.
Well, speaking of new, thank you for leading me into my pitch, because
I was going to say, Lauren, what are you pitching?
I picked this as it's not an easy pick, meaning I didn't think this would be an easy sell to Sergio. Like, in all honesty, I wanted to pick something, because there's not a lot of number ones. I wanted to pick something that would get him to think and would also hit him on the level of, why don't we look at a character in DC that you probably don't know much about? I've heard things about Aquaman you like. And what about Jackson Hyde, who's Aqua Lad becoming Aquaman? And what about the fact that it's more representation, which is really cool? Look at this dude. He looks great. Like, look at this kid. Really excited about this, especially those colors. I mean, just looking at that cover alone, the bright colors and the neons, I know Sergio is a fan of. So the synopsis for this is Jackson Hyde finally has it all. Mentors who support him, people that love him, and honest relationship with his mom. Woohoo, all these great stuff. But he had it all until that training facility and half of the Atlantean palace, so some Atlantean lore, got blown to Kingdom Come with Jackson in them. Now he stands accused of wrecking the life he worked so hard to build. He's going to have to use all his skills, wit, and cunning just to prove his innocence, let alone graduate from sidekick to how he's going to become Aquaman. And so this is a great, coming of age story. I know, Sergio, you seem to like those, actually, especially younger characters with their powers, especially if they're like kids or relatives of bigger heroes, like Superman or Batman. You've got the father in you, right? Like, who doesn't want to read this? It's 8 issues, so it's or 6.
Okay.
It's 6 issues, so it's a limited series. It's not a hard dedication or commitment, even if you did like it, right? And again, those colors alone, and it's something different. You can finally read another DC book.
Okay.
All that cool stuff.
Okay.
Also, Steve, thanks for not changing the banner. Rude.
I'm sorry. I was waiting for you to take the image of the Aquaman. I just want Sergio to see what's the right pick.
What was the live chat thinking today? He who Aquaman, or he who, what was the other one?
What was it? You don't remember the he who fights with monsters.
He doesn't remember now. That's how bored he was.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay.
But that cover is really amazing. Like, honestly, if you picked it because of the cover, I wouldn't blame you, because it is really cool. Probably has a good variant or two too.
Joey's saying I should trash the Aquaman pick. I'm not going to do that. I'm above Lauren's tactics of trashing books. I'm not about that.
I don't know.
I'm about raising.
No.
I'm about
raising.
You
didn't get a chance to trash my book because my pitch was so good, and Sergio was actually getting into it.
Hey, there's some
I'm about raising the qualities of the book that I know Sergio enjoys. I'm not about negative. Lauren, there's a federal election in Canada this week, and I'm not about to play your politics. I'm about to give Sergio a good book.
Oh, okay. I never said politics. I literally read the synopsis. I said representation. Representation is not political. It's literally a thing. It's important to Sergio. So if you guys are like, I'm playing politics, talk to Sergio about that because that's important to him.
I'm saying you're playing politics because you're dissing my book when I was giving my pitch.
I was talking about Joey's comment here. But anyways, I think you're leaning too hard on the Something's Killing the Children stuff, which is great though. But he can read Something's Killing the Children. But also, if he wants to read that book, which he's probably read something like yours a million times, won World War II with vampires and stuff, then let's do it. I'm in.
Okay. All right. Man. Shout out to both of you guys. Dope pitches.
Chris is right. Yeah. It has, Steve. You start using my tactics. That's my pitching you're doing.
I think, in all fairness to Lauren, Steve is taking from the playbook of Lauren a little bit. But hey,
gotta give the man what he wants.
You know what? It worked.
It might just work. You stealing and cheating, Steve. It might work. See?
It's not cheating if I'm playing to who's picking.
He Who Fights with Monsters. We'll be reading that this week, guys.
Let's do it.
Read along with us.
Sergio, you make it so easy to pick for you, bro. You never change it up. Hey,
listen, Lauren. Can
got it for you?
We're gonna keep it 100 with you guys. I feel like you didn't want to win this one. I don't know what you thought. Putting up Aquaman as the copper drop pig. I had no interest in that. So I think Steve's pitch game was good, but also to Lauren, I think you wanted to take that L somehow. I think Steve probably could have put up just about anything against that Aquaman, and I would have gone with Steve's pick, bro. But hey, listen, man, that's the name of the game. We're gonna be reading He Who Fights with Monsters, #1, Ablaze. So if you guys can pick it up, read along with us. Let me know if I messed up. Maybe I'm giving Steve too much credit and not enough Lauren. Maybe I should be picking up Aquaman. Let me know. Read along with us next week, man. All right. I'm excited.
Both are good picks. Both are good books. Yeah. Like, I think you can't go wrong with either of them.
Summer probably a little bit. Probably. He's gonna sick the Dolphins on me, man.
Sometimes I gotta give what the people want and not just what you want.
And fair enough. And
it seems like it was okay pick somewhere.
Yeah. Hey, Lauren took a page from my playbook. You tried to just pick the best book out there in your opinion, which is respect, man. I dig it. Is that it, guys?
I think that's it, man. We're almost at 2 hours today. Hey, this is our longest episode, I think.
But I had a lot of fun, man. Live chats, you guys were awesome. Lauren, Steve, you guys are awesome, man. We're gonna have to have a lengthy discussion though after Lauren on the merits of Mullet Cop. So stick around.
No discussion needed. We're only going in the battlefield, getting the arena armor up.
Oh man, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Steve, Lauren, any final thoughts you want to get out of here? Where can we find you guys at?
You can find me on Twitter at StovePost, as mentioned in the label right there. Mm-hmm. And Teo Comic Book Club at Teo Comic Book Club on Twitter. There you'll find the Discord link. Come join us. Vision Volume 1 and 2 this Tuesday. I'm excited. 3 years.
Join them.
Lit.
Lauren, where can all these fine nerds find you at? Hit us up with your plugs.
Yeah, you got my handle down there at Friendly MBHD Buy. I'm on Instagram and Twitter. I write for the Wednesday poll list. I write reviews for them, so check them out. You can find a link to that on my Twitter and Instagram too, though. And yeah, make sure you're following the House of Nerd Show on Twitter and Instagram as well at House of Nerd Show. Most of you already are, but just in case. And if you haven't already, please like the video if you watched it at all. That does help us. Subscribe and ring that pretty bell.
Yeah.
One more thing, not comic related, but if you are a Canuck like Sergio and I, please go vote federal election tomorrow. So any of you Canucks that are like, I don't know about the election, just vote. Even if you don't know who to vote for, abstain your vote. Just vote.
Yep. I dig it. Hey, voting is good, right? Voting.
Where can we find you, Serge?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I guess if you guys wanna sing Mullet Cop's praises along with me, hit me up on Twitter. Insert name comics. Other than that, guys, you know I've got a Facebook page. Always trying to connect you good readers with good books, man. You know, I've got an extensive back issue collection, pull list requests, variants, exclusive ratios, all that good stuff, man. Always trying to connect books to you people, man. It's been a blast. It feels good to have all three of us on the show again. And are we all back next week? What's the plan?
Next week,
I think we are.
Same bat time, same bat YouTube channel.
You heard Steve.
Destigmatize the dong as always.
Yeah, hashtag destigmatize the dong. We didn't even catch L. If you listen to this, thank you, because Nice House on the Lake #4, absolutely phenomenal issue because it wanted to hashtag destigmatize the dong.
Steve's getting discombobulated, getting all flustered.
I was gonna say he's gonna need. We need to cut the cameras now.
Cut the cameras. It's over, guys. Thank you so much.